weird. It says 5:46. That's weird. Ready? I'm going to call to order the September 17th, 2024 meeting, City Council meeting. It's 6 p.m. Please rise for the pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, item 1.1, public comments and announcements. At this time, we'd like to listen to any member of the audience on any subject matter, whether or not that item is listed on the agenda. All comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes for each speaker, shall be limited to city business or city-related business or matters of general public interest, and shall not include any personal attacks. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, members may not discuss or take action on any item that has been posted on the agenda. When your name is called, please come to the podium and state your name and address clearly into the microphone before making your comments. Angela Cervantes.
Angela Cervantes, 2534 Loganberry Circle. Good evening, Council. Over the past several years, my frustration with the lack of transparency, communication, and empathy from Gail Cook and Council has grown. 2 months ago, I came to a breaking point when my neighbor and her granddaughter were put in direct harm's way by a negligent decision made solely by our inept city manager, Gail Cook, still without apology. I spoke to you all that night and presented the many improprieties that I have witnessed throughout the years. I begged you all to redirect and start making more voter-conscious decisions. Person after person after person also got up that night and spoke with heavy hearts, deep concerns, and personal negative experiences dealing with Seabrook. But, as is the pattern, we were met with eye rolls, glazed faces, and an air of smugness so thick that it muffled your hearing. In the hours and days following our collective voices, it became evident by comments like, "Joe, talk to your people," and "you can't fix stupid," that we were once again unheard. And at that point, we realized that if we want change, we must make it. This was not a light decision, but a necessary one. We did not knock on doors or shove the petitions in people's faces. We simply presented facts, listened, and provided our neighbors a platform to finally be heard. Texas election code advises a 6-month time frame to get 50% of the last general election vote. Per Seabrook charter, we were given 30 days to get 64% of the voters to sign. Despite the information given tonight, we hit that number. We have some signatures deemed illegible, which we could have accounted for if not denied our legal right to be present for the tally, and others that were invalidated due to simple clerical errors, such as omitting the sign date. We were 5 short on paper, but this is not accurate. In the days following the deadline, many more residents continued to reach out to committee members wanting to sign. During the last month, despite the new wave of voices and oversight, you all continued to follow our city manager blindly. You voiced concerns about our budget deficit, but did not ask our city manager to cut any fat off the budget. You actually voted to increase budget expenditures in just about every single budget fund. You allowed our city manager to deplete reserve stabilization funds for capital improvement projects like mowers, IT software, and street signage. This is not fiscally responsible or sustainable. You have once again voted to spend $40,000 atop an already wasted $80,000 on a failed bond package, which will fail again. Find a new location, for heaven's sake. And $92,000 of general funds and $45,000 of hot tax funds on a lackluster Celebrate Seabrook. You approved 2 new warehouses without roadway impact plans or studies, and you have yet to address the overwhelming community concerns regarding the lack of EDC director. After the last 2 months of meeting so many amazing members of this community and hearing their heartbreaking experiences, but also many, many brilliant ideas, I am more resolved than ever to keep fighting and shining light in your dark nooks and crannies. Seabrook is still a unique, one-of-a-kind community with tons of potential. It is time we find leadership that can realize and cultivate that. This is just the beginning. Thank you.
Kelly Stewart.
Good evening. I'm here to speak on behalf of my husband who is working tonight. He is a member of the recall committee. I want to address a few things that have been going on in the city based on everything I have recently been tracking in the city government. First, regarding the recall of the mayor and council positions 3 and 5, you will hear today that the current tally of signed positions that there is insufficiency to do the recall. I want to state to the citizens of Seabrook that the current tally is misleading due to some discrepancies in validation process, and that because of the very thin margin for each of the recall positions, the numbers will be heavily scrutinized. To ensure that the voices of all the residents who signed the petition are heard and that the valid signatures are counted. This will be done in the upcoming days. I want to bring this up first because the recall committee received certified letters on Saturday morning notifying us of the insufficiency. I have no doubt that the council and staff had already received this notification as well, which brings me to my second comment. This past Saturday, a concert for kids benefit was held at the yard at the Barge 295, with several people in attendance, including some council members. By all accounts, the benefit was a great success. Around 8:30 p.m., a noise complaint was investigated by Seabrook Police Department, and a zero-tolerance citation was given to the Barge 295 for being around 6 decibels over the already restrictive 65 decibel limit. I bring this up because it has been insinuated that the recall has something to do with Barge 295. And now, as soon as the city has been led to believe that the recall will not go through, there is immediately another complaint logged, and allegedly by someone who wasn't even home at the time. From those who were there to witness the interaction, the attitude of the responding officers bordered on harassment, and this entire situation stinks of political motivation and retribution. Let me be perfectly clear. The Seabrook recall has nothing or little to do with Barge 295. It does have everything to do with the attitude of certain council members and city staff towards locally owned small businesses and Seabrook citizens who have been ignored, placated, and called downright stupid. It has to do with the lack of transparency and communication from the city manager, and the lack of efficiency and sincerity in handling citizens' concerns. And lastly, the obvious bias with how the rules and city ordinances are enforced. Let me also be clear that regardless of the outcome of this specific recall, the oversight of the council by the now large and continually growing group of concerned citizens will continue. I know that some of you will be leaving soon for one reason or another, and some of you not soon enough. But for those of you who continue to seek election, re-election, and or to work in public service, let me remind you today, on the 237th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution, that we the people hold the power and you answer to us all, not just a few. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Susan Hefner.
Susan Hefner, 1910 Laurie Court. I didn't come here today wanting to speak. I've been told, probably not a great idea. Might make myself a target, but here I am. Someone said, don't take these things personal about the recall. I'm taking it personal. You're attacking my husband and my friends. For the citizens that have overwhelming concerns, you have the right to do what you're doing. That's fine. put some of that time and effort into being part of the community, the commissions, the boards. That would be really good for you to learn more than whatever you've researched. Yeah, it would. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. 1.1, Mayor, City Council, and members of city staff may make announcements about city community events.
Well, good evening. It is September 17th. Upcoming events. The Seabrook Saltwater Derby is right around the corner, September 28th from 5:30 to 3 at Barge 295. That's always a lot of fun. Stop by and check it out. National Night Out is Tuesday, October 1st from 6 to 9, and that happens in your neighborhood. Mine too, but it's National Night Out. Coffee with a Cop, October 2nd, 9:30 to 11 here at the Community House. Pat Green will be at Barge 295 on Friday, October 11th from 5 to 10. And Celebration Seabrook is coming back Saturday, October 11 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. there at Mater Park. That's all on the list. Is there anything I'm missing?
Anybody else? Thank you. Thanks, Rob. 1.2, City Secretary to make announcements presenting the inefficiency of the petitions filed on August 23rd, 2024, seeking to recall Mayor Tom Kolevsky, Council Member Position 3 Tom Tollett, and Council Member Position 5 Buddy Hammond. Rachel?
Yes, Mayor and Council. On August 23rd, 2024, the City of Seabrook received signed petitions calling for the recall of Mayor Tom Kolevsky, Council Member Tom Tollett, and Council Member Buddy Hammond. Section 8.03 of the City Charter requires a recall petition to be signed by at least 450 qualified voters of the city and shall conform to other provisions of state law. With the assistance of the Secretary of State's office, the Harris County Voter Registrar's office, and our city's legal team, I have arrived at the following findings. The recall petition for Mayor Tom Kolevsky contained 445 qualified signatures, which was less than the required number of 450 qualified signatures. The recall petition for Council Member Tom Tollett contained 442 qualified signatures, which was less than the required number of 450 qualified signatures. The recall petition for Council Member Buddy Hammond contained 442 qualified signatures, which was less than the required number of 450 qualified signatures. After examination, I, the City Secretary, do find the petitions calling for the recall of Mayor Tom Kolevsky, Council Member Tom Tollett, and Council Member Buddy Hammond to be insufficient. Thank you.
Thank you. 2.0 presentation. Presentation by Port Houston on thoroughfare plans into Bayport. There he is. Here, Ron.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I just want to say, first of all, thank you all for the opportunity to present a concept that we have here at Port Houston. I want to run through a few points of information here, really set the stage of what we're proposing, why, and then really get some comments from the group. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak this evening. For those of you that don't know, tonight I'm representing Port Houston, and we own and operate 8 public facilities up and down the Houston Ship Channel. This includes the nation's largest break bulk channel and 2 of the fastest growing container terminals in the U.S. Houston Ship Channel is ranked number 1 in waterborne foreign tonnage, and Port Houston continues to act as a strategic leader for the vital waterway of the Houston Ship Channel that supports over $906 billion in national economic value, creating 1.35 million jobs in the state of Texas. Actually, 77% of those jobs are in Harris County. A lot of that is information that you may or may not know. But we're here to talk about the significant growth that we've experienced at really our Bayport and Barbers Cut container terminals. We've doubled our volume since 2016 and grown 30% since 2021. And that's rapid growth driven by both import and export commodities, and we've seen significant growth in both areas. Exports include resins, plastics, chemicals, and minerals that we manufacture and create in the region and ship out into other regions, other areas of the world, automotive products. And then, of course, on the import side, Texas is a great place to live, a great place to work, which means we need to buy things to sustain our lifestyle. It means appliances, electronics, retail of all kinds, hardware, construction materials, food and drink, the chairs that you're sitting in today. Port Houston is unique in our containerized cargo sector for the market that we support. 85% of the containerized cargo that we handle is either origined or destined for the state of Texas. With volume growth, with the local markets that we serve, that means truck traffic grows as well. So what we've seen is explosive growth. We continue to work very aggressively inside the fence and across industry to improve the service that we provide and keep cargo fluid, which means trucks don't sit on the road. They get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, and we're reducing dwell and have a high turnover rate of the cargo that's in our facility. We're doing a lot of things from a technology perspective to enhance the service we provide and reduce the impact that we have on our neighboring facilities. And, what we continue to do is try to, as we grow, more evenly spread out the volume that we support and then add hours of service to reduce the impact to the community. What we have not been able to out-engineer in our process optimizations or in our partnerships with industry is today we see a truck arrival at our two facilities, one truck every 3 to 5 seconds. So we're one fender bender, one accident, one breakdown from significant congestion on the roadway, which is unacceptable to you and quite frankly unacceptable to me and the organization. So what we've done is we've tried to reestablish a long-standing concept that was in the early phases of the Bayport Master Plan to remove the single point of entry and exit from the Bayport complex. So not a new idea, but reinstituting and accelerating an old idea to try to provide a relief valve, if you will, for when the unexpected happens or when there is a unplanned surge in the supply chain. So what does that mean? Well, we don't exactly know yet, but we know the single point of failure is a problem. And the single point of failures that I'm referring to is on the screen here. I'm sure everyone is very familiar with the Bayport complex, the intersection of Port Road and 146. We would like to implement a secondary roadway in and out of the complex. And I think if we go to the next slide, it shows what it could look like. Again, I want to emphasize this is not a set in stone project that's completely designed and ready to deliver. This is just an idea of what something could look like. With the early phase completed on port property to connect old 146 to the southern edge of the Bayport container terminal complex. The idea behind this is it's not a primary truck route, it's an auxiliary route just to provide additional access in and out and provide that secondary connection in and out of the complex. So what does that mean? If we can go to the next slide. I'll try to restate the problem a little bit simpler. We've grown. We've seen a lot of growth. The majority of our volume that we see through our facility, since it's a local market, is handled via truck. It is what it is in that regard. So we're working very hard from a technology perspective to implement new technologies to make sure those trucks stay mobile, stay fluid, but when they don't, for whatever reason, we need an auxiliary access point. That's the proposed solution. We're working with all stakeholders, both industry, community, TxDOT, HGAC, to get this implemented into the regional transportation plan, and we're hoping for that approval later this year. From a timing perspective, if it is approved in the plan at the end of the year, an early phase of this project could happen as early as 2026. I'd like to stop there and ask if there are any questions.
Yes, with regard to the proposed ingress and egress, is this going to mirror what is currently at Port Road, where you have southbound traffic and a flyover, and then northbound traffic, same thing going in? So would it mirror that?
More than likely, it would be a similar situation where it's two-way traffic mirroring what is at Port Road and 146.
Okay. What about the intersection of Red Bluff and 146? Is there going to be access to that also?
So we understand that TxDOT is in some early stage development of enhancing that area. So we don't know exactly what that would look like. Again, early stages of development of the project. We don't know. That's why we're working with TxDOT to make sure that anything we do complements the enhancements that they're making.
Thank you.
Joe?
So the city approved a cold warehouse on 146 between old 146 and new 146. It's, if you could highlight that, where that cold warehouse is going to be, right there in that grass area, right where that X is. We've been told they're not going to put a little, I mean, it would be literally 10 feet of exit for the trucks. Right now, they're going to have to go back and they'd be all bottled up into all this traffic. If you have power with the port, I mean, with the TxDOT, because you have more than Seabrook does, the port has more power. I think strongly we should collaborate and work together to get that so they can get right on 146. And it's a small area, but they've supposedly told us no. But if we're trying to work together as a team, let's get it done, because it's not a big deal to do, but it gets traffic from having to go through all this. And because that's what a lot of the people were upset about, is the extra truck traffic that's going to be here. So I think that's a pretty easy fix. It's just up to TxDOT. But with you guys working with it, I think it could help.
Jackie?
Can you show me exactly, is this Red Bluff, or is this parallel to Red Bluff? Can you just explain that a little bit more into detail, and who owns that property?
So what you see in green, surrounded by the yellow dashed lines, on the very western edge of that, it runs essentially up to Red Bluff. We're not sure what that connection looks like past old 146 at this point. A future phase could include flyovers very similar to what's at Port Road. There's a lot of unknowns there. And we just need to work with city, TxDOT, and all the appropriate agencies to make sure that what we do is, mutually beneficial to everyone involved and provides additional access in and out of the complex without creating new conflicts.
So this is in conjunction with the road that's currently there? This is going to be...
It probably wouldn't be a continuation. It would probably be separate. What we're showing here is just what it could look like on our property. But as we make those connections, that's part of the outreach and working with the different agencies of what it could look like.
And that is your property, or the port's property already? Is that what you just said?
The majority of what you're seeing there is.
And the
That's
rest
correct.
is private or,
It's a combination of multiple different owners.
and that would just
What we're
like,
showing here is ours.
okay. And you would just, you would take ownership of that for sword. Not right of, eminent domain. Thank you.
Well, right now, all we're looking at is our property and then partnering with TxDOT to see how it meets up with what their plans are to expand in the area, and then provide better connectivity. We don't really have a plan to do anything in that regard until we get a plan that works.
Okay. Well,
Right
should
now,
be-
we're focused on what's on our property, what's in our control, and then doing outreach to everyone that's impacted and understanding how we can create a win all around. At the end of the day, I understand the concern. We've heard over and over again, I've heard it over and over again, and I share the sentiment of we don't want traffic blocking access in and out of the city. That's been very clear, and I respect that, and we as an organization agree with that. So in order to responsibly grow and be a good neighbor, this is what we see as a key opportunity to make that happen.
Well, I appreciate you coming here and giving us the update. I would love to hear from TxDOT as well. Maybe we can get that on the books, but thank you.
Other question? Okay, since it's been my understanding that since Bayport opened, 100% of the ingress and egress of containers has been via truck. Is that continuing forward, or is there any plan for rail?
So that is a near correct statement. It's about 99.5%. Every single container does leave via truck. Some do go to Houston area rail ramps, including the rail ramp that we have at Barber's Cut. But for all of our container volume at Port Houston, between the two container terminals, it's over 99% truck served. And the reason for that is the market that we served. Touched on it earlier, 85% of the volume that we handle stays in the state of Texas. I think the number is 70 to 75% is actually within a 250 mile radius. So the market dictates that stays on a truck to reduce the cost and increase the frequency of delivery.
Thank you.
So the road, and you're calling that a flyover, I suppose, at the very west side, but you're still south of the rail line, is that correct? What is the plans for the rail line? Are we going to have to deal with cars in that particular area as well? Railroad cars?
So the rail line that you're talking about that goes underneath 146
Yes.
across
Yes.
146 was built to support what you see under construction there on our property, which is a resin packaging facility, which is under construction. The rail corridor could also support a future intermodal yard in what we refer to as our Bayport South area. That's a project that's been on our capital plan for quite some time, but with limited rail demand, no plans for that to move forward imminently at all. The roadway, it follows along in parallel with that rail track, with the very western edge being outside of the berm, and then you can see it curve up and cross and then go inside of the berm and stay kind of within the confines of the complex at that point.
At one time, they were absolutely looking at monorail at one point. Do you remember that project?
There are several different, I'm going to call it alternative conveyance methods that have been evaluated. And we continue to kind of try to stay close to that and understand what's available in the marketplace. There's no immediate plans. We do continue to work with a few technology providers to see if there's any opportunity in the future, though.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things that we're the most concerned about is that the trucks back up all the way to 225.
Yep.
They sit there and run their diesels hours. Are are there plans and still in works to change those to propane or to some other cleaner method?
So there's multiple plans there, and the first concept is how do we better share data across industry so that doesn't happen, or you reduce those daily surges in container volume, so you don't have, a 30% surge show up on a day when you can spread that volume out across today the 65 hours a week that we service trucks, as well as try to force industry to adopt expanded hours that we've trialed several times over the last 5 years. We actually submitted a grant and were awarded funding on behalf of the trucking community for the purchase of alternative fuel over-the-road trucks. So they're not our trucks, but they're the trucks that come in and out of our facility. And part of that was to do some industry outreach and then understand what the needs and demands were. And we were able to secure a significant amount of funding that we can reallocate out and reduce the impact to the trucking companies and owner-operators that operate those trucks. It could be EV. It could be alternative fuels of all different kinds, but we continue to remain engaged in that space. So I look at it two different ways. How do we do more with what we have? How do we expand the hours to reduce those surges? And then, how do you do it in a more sustainable environment?
So you have 6 new cranes, is that correct?
So we just took delivery of 3 new ship-to-shore cranes. Mm-hmm. If that's what you're referring to, the last one came off the vessel on Friday.
To the terminal, yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. So we're expecting more.
Those are the 3 that we just took delivery of were purchased about 2 years ago. We actually, just earlier this year, our Port Commission awarded the purchase of 8 additional ship-to-shore cranes. And that would be 4 for Bayport and 4 for Barber's Cut.
Thank you for being here. I certainly hope that you keep us informed. We have a lot to say. Whether it gets heard or not is really a great question. We need more cooperation and more working together with the port because we haven't seen it always. So I hope that you will continue to communicate with us about what's going on. The citizens are concerned. We hear about it every day. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say, I certainly appreciate you all allowing me the time to present this idea. You've given us a lot of things to consider. We will continue to remain engaged on this and all things port-centric. It's very important to us, and it's critical to our future growth as an organization.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I have a question. No, it's not an open session. Thanks, Ryan. 2.0, or 2.2, presentation of the biannual report from Seabrook Economic Development Corporation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Paul Dunphy. I'm the chairman of Seabrook Economic Development Corporation, and I'm going to present you with the annual report to Council that we do every year. I'd like to start off with our board of directors. I'm the chairman. Terry Chapman's the vice chairman. Kevin Ferguson's the treasurer. Ann Wacker is secretary. Gary Bell's a member. Buddy Hammond is a council representative, and of course the mayor. There's always a mayor and one city council representative on it. The purpose of the corporation is to use economic development resources to encourage and promote the general economic welfare of the city, its residents and businesses, as authorized by the act as it may be amended. So as I see it, and what I believe the city has seen it for many years, economic development, even though we are a small community, we're here to try to promote business, more employees, better tax structure, more revenue for property tax. That's what we do, and better life improvement for our citizens. So that's what the EDC purpose is. Last couple of years, have really focused on our goals a lot. For many years, we've had goals that kind of continue on, and they weren't very specific. The past several years, we've been trying to tick and tie what council is doing with EDC's funds as trying to support what you guys are trying to do within the city as we can legally. So we're going to go through these 6 goals, and they're going to kind of give you some ideas of what we are focused on, and I believe it matches up to what City of Seabrook. So number 1 is promote Seabrook branding, image enhancement, communication, and key marketing initiatives. So 146 obviously has been going on for many years. EDC has been involved from the beginning with TxDOT and council, and we funded $1.1 million to, if you see the difference between Kemah and Seabrook, you're going to see a significant difference. We hired a TxDOT consultant years ago to work with TxDOT to tell us how to get TxDOT to do certain things. And lighted stars, the riprap, the brick. You won't see that in Kemah because they, at the time, for many years have been more infighting, and they weren't paying attention to what 146. The flyover, we drop down and people can come to our businesses. They have a flyover. So when you get on that flyover, those cars are going to pass every business. And at the time, it was kind of controversial because the drop downs took a wider berth and took out more of our businesses, if you recall, on the west side. And that was tough to make a decision like that. But we felt very strongly that it's better to do it then instead of a slow death, because a flyover, they wouldn't stop at stores, they wouldn't stop at businesses, they wouldn't stop at restaurants. They would just go to League City. So Seabrook Economic Development had worked with council for a lot on the corridor, and it has made a big improvement, as you guys, anyone can see driving through 146. Number 2, focus on the development and promotion of Old Seabrook. You know, Old Seabrook has been a project for many, many years, even with the point. The EDC was the one that promoted the sign over the point and was a large part of all the funding after Ike on the point. We supported and completed a $40,000 livable center study, which is the only way you can get grants. You have to have a working document that can slide into it. Now with the completion and the decommission now in the future of the treatment plant, we're really focused on what that's going to look like as a park or a living space area. So with the study, there's lots of walking space, there's lots of new roads, there's lots of ideas, but we are really going to be focused on the Bay Park that will be coming up shortly as soon as the treatment plant is decommissioned. 3, 4, and 5, provide guidance in the Seabrook City Council on economic development decisions and future land uses. We are really trying to stay in tune with what council visions, your budget, your strategic plan, your CIP plan. We're trying to match that to see what EDC can support at the same time City Council is working towards. Support initiatives that promote the redevelopment of the business corridor along State Highway 146 in Red Bluff. That, again, is pretty much our last commercial area that we're focused on and trying to support any business that wants to come in there. What can we do? What can we support them to make it happen? Review and potential expansion of incentives for overall business development, incentives for local relocation and new development, including district-specific incentives. So we came up with a new incentive program several years ago. There's laws that restrict what we can spend money on, and trying to tie that to a small community. We don't have acres and acres of commercial property. We don't have, we don't have, and our businesses that we're attracting aren't going to bring a lot of employees, and most employees don't work and live in the city. But so it's a challenge to find projects that we can do and fund within the law. But our new incentive program really rates the projects so that we can quickly identify things that we could possibly work on. Number 6, recommend to the city capital improvement program, CIP, for capital projects such as streets, drainage, and other infrastructure improvements that benefit business development. This is a key because infrastructure is extremely important in any city. If you turn your back on infrastructure, it will bite you because it gets old, it dilapidates, and then we're not a welcoming city. So anything that we can look at, like gateway and directional signs, potential thoroughfares, old Seabrook livable center, lots of these projects, not only will they be a CIP projects, but it will improve the quality of life in Seabrook. Theater award incentives in the last couple of years. Merlion is active. Mario's Pizza, The Commons, Seabrook Town Center, Seabrook Plaza, Seabrook Cheese Company, and Transwestern. These are all, some of them are complete, some are not. Some of them are, we pay for permits, or we do driveways, or we do lots of different other things. And then all our funding is on a basis they have to perform. So we only pay after the business performs and completes what was required, so that we don't have an exposure of spending money and not getting what we required. This is a picture of Transwestern building that we had an incentive for. EDC website's very active. We're continually working on it. If you get on it, you can look at users and lots of data. We have real estate data. We have a lot of different material that is inputted weekly, and it's interesting if that's something you're interested in. So online incentive applications, we've got that online now, so businesses can get online, see what we can promote, what we can incentivize. They can make an application online, policy and guideline updates, websites that are constantly being updated. These are businesses that have come to town lately and that we have been in negotiations with on different levels, but there is activity in Seabrook. We are attracting businesses, and there's more to be attracted. The Compass at Margaritaville is still an active project that we will participate in, and the Highland Center is a high-density apartment building on the water that we are continually trying to get involved in. The Commons is a project that we've done. Seabrook Town Center is coming. Community partnerships. We work with Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, Bay Area, Houston Economic Bay, and Bayhab, and we work with them. They report back to us. If we have a project, we get them involved. They help us with their efforts and their infrastructure that does help us a lot. Real estate marketing, we try to keep up with what's for sale in Seabrook and promote it on our website so that if somebody was to call or was interested in Seabrook, they have quite a bit of data that they could look at. We are just about to roll out a Seabrook is Open as soon as 146 is complete, video, marketing, to try to make sure people know that the construction is over and you can get here and get home as quick as you'd like. We promote and support annual Keels and Wheels broker and party event. We have this every year. We invite all the brokers, real estate people, developers to try to promote at a premier location at Keels and Wheels and promote Seabrook and show them what they could be part of. We do a Business of the Year every year, and this year was Athen's Corner, and they were very excited, and then we enjoy them being here. EDC sales tax, so we get a portion of the sales tax. We are conservative with our original estimates, and every year it seems to be our revenue is higher than our actual budget. Of course, we have our yearly budget. CIP projects were estimated at $1 million. Ongoing incentives, $565,486. New incentives, $100,000, and the bond payment, the water tank is $196,000. And of course, our budget is on. So again, we're back to our strategic plan. We've been working, and we've had 2 workshops with council and other committees to try to pair up our strategic plan that matches the city's. So right now, our strategic plan has support existing local business industry, business marketing and recruitment, quality of life infrastructures, communications, and Old Seabrook. I would like to I know we get the mayor, we get a council member, anyone that would like to come to our meetings. I would appreciate it. I'd like to see council come to our meetings, engage us, and make sure that, that we can work together and do the projects that the city needs and our citizens need. So I encourage you all to come to our meetings anytime. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so can we go back to that rendition of the overpass at NASA 1 where so I was on council, Ed Klein was on council when this came up, and we were going to spend $1.1 million, which is a lot of money. I see this, and it looks nice, but the way the original rendering like this that was mostly plants. I understand there was going to be some riprap in here, but I voted on mostly plants. Now I see just a little bit of plants down the middle, and if you drive by it, it's really actually small because they have some of that black netting, I think, on the ground right now, because I made a U-turn underneath that to come to the meeting today. So I'm like, when did that change? Because, they had pampas grass all over, and it was going to be native grasses. And that's another reason I thought we spent a lot of money on a group that came out and looked at what kind of plants they were going to do. So this is a lot different from what I voted on than what I see now.
So we went through a number of different renderings with the consultant. There was multiple meetings, I believe. The riprap was a deterrent of having anybody that's going to be camping underneath there. So I think the quantities were talked about with the consultant several years ago. And then the plantings will ultimately be the city's financial responsibility. So some of the planting areas were tuned down to natives and to the quantities being something that we can maintain fiscally in the future, because all of this will be turned over to the city to maintain.
Okay, and I do get that. But then the reason we voted on and had paid the 1.1 million was because of the plants. We wanted to be different than everybody else. And I get that, but I never, did we then pay less than the 1.1, or did we? Because if I agree to something, I go, hey, I'm going to buy this phone for 1.1 million. And then they go, well, you're going to get like a half a phone, and it'll be like more of a pager than a phone. Well, shouldn't it be less? That's all I'm asking.
All of it was laid out. There was an agreement that came before council that was called an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT, in which all the quantities we were ultimately agreed upon were in that contract, and that was what went to TxDOT.
Well, I've been on council for 7 years. I never saw it like that. No one ever showed a picture and said, okay, from this being all plants or mainly all plants with some brick, coping all around, then all of a sudden down to just a little bit of plants. I never, ever saw that. There was never a rendering like that. It might have been verbally talked about, but how can you verbally, go away? The plants were going to cover 10,000 square feet down to, it was never said like 10,000 square feet of plants down to like 1,000 square feet of plant. That was never talked about. So I don't know how this got past us, but this is the kind of thing that gets frustrating because I don't think it's very clear, and I'm on council.
We could probably go and pull the minutes and give that out to council if that would help.
But rock doesn't cost 1.1 million bucks.
So again, the public, as far as public consumption, TxDOT bid the projects for the green ribbon. So all the letting project, the quantities, the cost per cubic yard is public if you go to the TxDOT letting. So you can see the cost of the cubic yards.
Anyone, any questions for me?
Yes. So Paul Chavez was our director for a period of time, left last year sometime. And our city manager, Gail Cook, took on that position as director. Can you give us an update on how that's going?
It's going great. I worked with Paul for all the time he was here. So we're a small city. We don't have a lot. You saw 6 projects. We had a full-time director at a cost of about $180,000, and we had an assistant. I had several meetings with mayors and city managers, over a period of time, and I was always not necessarily, I felt it was an expanded government position. It's hard to stay busy at a $180,000 a year person to really stay busy in this city for incentives, for our economic development. We're pretty small, and we don't have a lot of commercial property. So when we were getting to a point where there was, situation that it was a good timing, we dropped the budget, we save $180,000 and get rid of the director. And the city manager can easily take over the administration with an assistant. And the mayor and myself and the city manager always meets with all incentive applicants. And at the time, a director was also meeting. Well, that's a lot of people meeting with someone to say, do you need $52,000 to put a facade on your building? That's what we're going to, as most of our projects are. So I believe it's going well. The city manager manages the program extremely well. Our meetings are extremely informed by the city manager and staff. So as far as I'm concerned, and I've been on EDC in and out for 18 years, it's as run as well, if not better, than it's ever done in 18 years.
Thank you, Paul. There's one more. Can we talk about the latest investments that we just had? Thank you. Miramar and Soul Kitchen, can we speak about that at this point?
Yeah. These are upcoming projects?
Oh, the recent incentives on the last meeting, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're just talking about the last two recent incentives that were approved last Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had two, the shopping center and a coffee shop. So we approved both of them basically. Coffee shop, we need to negotiate with the owner because this is a leased property, but it's building a parking lot in Old Seabrook. A good project for EDC. It's infrastructure. Even if the business doesn't survive, it would be an infrastructure that's going to stay there. And the next tenant would be improving the property. And then the shopping center, we approved $300,000. They're redoing the whole parking lot now that Taco Bell's coming up. They're repaving it, new lighting, new palm trees, and then they're going to go into a second phase of new facade. We approved $300,000 for the asphalt, which I believe, again, will improve that. It'll improve the sight of the city when you drive by it from the overpass or from 146. So yes, those two projects were passed. Staff needs to work with the owners to get the details, but I believe we approved it based upon no different changes, and I would assume it'll move forward this month.
Thank you, Paul.
So on this rendition here of this, you see how it's in blue, the Seabrook, the logo. Down at Repsdorf, we were under the understanding that they were going to paint those the same way. Do you know if they're going to do that?
They're still finishing up. So Weber is the first contractor. They have lots of painting to do. Even the retaining wall, I think, is going to get color as well. The bollards that you see in this picture are coming with the landscaping crew, so they're in fabrication right now. So there's lots of components, and now we have two contractors that are in town. We've got Weber, and then we've got the landscaping crew, and they're kind of following each other as they finish up.
Okay. So my next point is to basically the citizens of Seabrook. In January, we had an EDC meeting at a hotel. It was an all-day event. I stayed half the day, had to go back to work the other half. So one of the things, this lady came in, was hired by the city to speak to us about EDC. And she spoke. I actually learned a lot. Some of the other citizens here learned a lot as well. We are the only city in Texas that has the city manager also be the EDC director. We're the only city. When I found out what EDC really does, which is a ton of stuff, and by the way, the people like you and other people on this committee, that you do a good job. No one's saying that you don't. What I'm saying is there's so much more to that, though. You're supposed to go to every business and actually talk to every business in this city and find out what they need, what we could do, what we can do to retain them, all that kind of stuff. Then you talk to other businesses to come in, because we have that where Zane's Burgers is, there's a whole bunch of empty businesses. Miramar Shopping Center, a bunch of empty businesses. This was all supposed to be filled when 146 was finished. Technically, it's not, but it is because of the traffic flows. But then here's the other big part that I want people to understand, because this is where I'm going to be very transparent. When Paul Chavez was let go, he didn't just leave, he was let go. There's supposed to be a report due on October 1st. That was in 2023, October 2023. Then on February 1st, 2024, there's another report. Then on June 1st, 2024, there's another report. I brought this up last meeting, 2 weeks ago. There has not been a report. This is the first report they've done since. So they in my world, you missed the deadline of October 1st, you missed the deadline of February 1st, and you missed the deadline of June 1st. That's not acceptable. And wait a minute, I heard something earlier. We're in a no tolerance. Well, if we're no tolerance for noise decibel, I guess I'm at a no tolerance for having reports late. Not you. I think it's the city manager that's supposed to do this. So I want to know, again, I got an answer, it wasn't a good answer, and we've talked about it over the phone, why we didn't get those reports. If everything's so great and everything's going perfect, why aren't we at least getting a report? I mean, a report. I come from a world, like I say, in the NFL, not for long when you mess up. So I'm just trying to figure it out. And if we're doing so great, why aren't these businesses breaking down our doors? I was at the Galveston County Mayors and Council. They invited all their EDC people there. They were talking about how great everything's going in Texas City, League City, Lamarck, all these cities. You know, I understand we had 146. Everybody gets that. That was a big thing. But that's done now. So, you know, I have a different view of things. And again, we now hear it about this, well, there was a report came about the riprap and from, 10,000 square feet of plants to now none, or like 100 square feet. Not happy with that.
So I would have to say, let me try to break what you just said. It's quite a bit. The reports could be my problem. When we transition from a director to our committee and the city manager, I believe there was a couple times that we didn't have enough data and we weren't, we just didn't need the report. So if we failed to give you a report, obviously that's wrong. We should be. It's me that gives the report. City manager doesn't. The director never has. I've always given the report. So I could look back at those dates. If you could give me those dates that we were supposed to perform, and if we didn't, I can give you a breakout on that. As far as going to every business, what we've done is we've broken our committee up and assigned businesses to each committee person. Instead of spending $180,000 for having somebody drive around and talk to some businesses, how's it going, what can we do for you? We broke it up so our citizens are going out and trying and maybe buying a hamburger and talking to the owner. We got all our business cards printed up so we all can go around. So we kind of covered that actually probably better than in the past. What else what other item was it?
It goes back to the, again, this is where it's not you. The communication is a huge issue. I've had this problem for a long time, and it's just the way it's communicated. I think there's obviously a communication gap and problem. Some things are if you're going to make a change in $1.1 million spent, I guarantee it, I would be sitting down with whoever I'm spending $1.1 million and make sure they understood every little nickel that was going to be changed. Because who spends $1.1 million on the way the underpass looks from a bunch of plants? Because if you saw those renditions, and I wish we had them up, how great it looked with all those plants and everything to a bunch of rocks. It's
so
just
when
crazy.
I was on council, I worked with TxDOT, through EDC and council. TxDOT is a very complicated machine. We did not spend the 1.1. We actually got a fund, and some of it's going to be refunded back. I think $500,000 or $600,000. So the 1.1's not been spent. It's what you guys voted for. TxDOT does not do detail. they tell you what it's going to be, and you try to maneuver through that machine. So I don't know the details of should there have been 100 plants or 50 plants. I do remember the riprap. I remember that very detailed because they didn't want tents. It's a new countrywide under certain I remember that. Now, if we didn't get the plants that we were supposed to get, I guess Gail can definitely look into that and find it. But again, TxDOT, we had to hire a expert for years to work with TxDOT because they don't do anything you want. I mean, cities have no pull with TxDOT. And you kind of get a package. And it may change over a 2-year period. TxDOT may change their specifications and say, we don't do plants anymore. I don't know the detail. I don't think there's any mismanagement or someone did some kind of change in hands with let's shortchange them on plants. I think it's just, I mean, I'm sure you can track the process. I just, you know, working on the project for years, I mean, I've been to TxDOT 5 times on this project in town. It's never, and we meet with directors and they never give you a straight answer because it can change. So, any other questions?
Jackie?
I'd also like to echo what Joe said because I've been talking about the EDC department for a while. I think it needs more attention. And the annual reports, the biannual reports, and the report that's due for budget season, none of those were presented. And this is the time that the people are desperately wanting our community to be redeveloped back to at least what it was. We've lost 50 businesses with the 146 expansion. We are hungry. We are looking to not have to go over to the bridge or down NASA to, you know, enjoy our evenings and have dinner and all the things. So not having an update, I think, is a big deal. Also, the awarded incentive update, there was nothing for 2024 listed on there. The Americana Cafe that you guys funded, was it 2 years ago, you know, $35,000, and that failed. That's not on that report. The online incentive from February of 2024 that you guys are doing, the applications online, I'd like to know what businesses you're talking to or whoever your committee's talking to because it seems like they don't know. I copied and pasted Gail's email about an update from EDC, really, genuinely just to update the community with some information. And I couldn't believe the attention it received. And some local small business owners are pretty upset that they had no idea any of this was going on. They were so offended that other businesses that sound a little bit more like competition businesses, you know, with the coffee shops, that we're encouraging them to come in, but we're also denying them funds or even resources to what we can do for them. So I think we have a lot of work to do as a city and as our Economic Development Committee in general to work to do. So Ann Wacker, also part of your EDC, said that there's an active outreach program for existing businesses. I would love to hear a much more in-depth update on that. I'd also like to ask about the signage project because I see a lot of new signs around town, but they're with different fonts, they're different colors, they're different font size. I mean, like First Street is like big First, and then ST on the very end is like tiny. They all look very, there's no uniform. So what's up with that?
Well, I'm not in charge of the sign department, but I know through my experience with the city, we make our own signs. So street signs, we make signs, and if you got a large word, it does create a different font. So the signs are the same size. I just know that through experience of watching them make signs years and years ago. So their EDC, so EDCs can't bring businesses to town. EDC can't, we are a government, right? You guys are government. We can only do something like the Point. We spent $10 million after Ike on the Point. We built the infrastructure, we made it so the electrical wires would go underground, we redid the sewer, we raised it so it wouldn't flood, but nothing's been built. Government doesn't own land, right? We don't own the buildings, we don't control the lease rates, we don't control the construction here. 146 just finished, right? So, I mean, I'm hoping, we all are hoping that now that it is finished and we have a program to try to market our city and say we are finished with construction, we're open, that they will come. But they have to come and then say, hey, I'm really interested in opening a business here. What offers does the government have for me to incentivize me to come to your city? That's what we do. And we can't do any more than that. I mean, they have to bring a project to the government. I mean, the government can't go out and say, I'm ready to give every one of you $10,000 if you want it. I got it. No, they need to bring an application. They need to show it, and then we are going to work them through to keep them and incentivize them to come to the city. That's what EDC in general, I believe, does. The outreach, I know I've been to lots of businesses. I wish you would have reached out to me. You and I have never spoken, and I've been chairman for years. You know, you haven't come to a meeting. Now, I'm hoping you come. You have my email, call me, we can talk. If you've got ideas or you think there's failure, I'm a volunteer. I'm doing this because out of my love of my city. So bring me your ideas and I would love to hear them.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to follow on the comment you were making about Americana Grill, so you understand this. The investment that EDC makes is in infrastructure. It's in a capital improvement program, such as a parking lot. The parking lot will be there whether the business goes or stays. Yes, Americana Grill left, but Athena's Corner came, and they're benefiting from the investment that was made at that time. The Point. This is when we were developing the Point and the millions that we spent down there, we had a commitment from the Pappas family. Their commitment was, when your shovel breaks the ground, our shovel breaks the ground, and we will rebuild. Well, our shovel broke the ground. We spent a chunk of money. Pappas still not. And there's a reason for that. For those of you that don't know it, the Pappas family said, we want water access. But there's another family that owns a band of land right around the Point, a 25-foot band, and they're not willing to play. And we can't do anything. And we've been talking to them, I guarantee you, I've been talking to them since '98 and aware of it. So that's some of the things we face. The other thing, too, is that every commercial property we got, whether it's Miramar, the towers, wherever, has got somebody out there marketing it. So when you have an EDC director go out and say, hey, come to Seabrook, we got openings at Miramar Shopping Center, the first thing they're going to do is say, well, let's talk rates. Oh, I can't do that. You got to have them call the owner of Miramar. So that's when you start looking at the dollars and cents. Does it make sense to go out and hire an EDC director to give them the phone number of the Miramar? And that's some of the issues. The other thing, too, is you have to realize with the internet, the dynamics of finding a place for your franchise or your store or your niche market has changed so much in the last 10 years, it's unreal. So when you talk about hiring an EDC director or you're looking at what an EDC can or can't do, keep all these things in mind. And the other thing, too, and what Paul brought out, we don't solicit somebody to come in here in terms of, oh, we need another coffee shop. They come and say, hey, I want to open a coffee shop. Now, you're not going to say, well, we got 20 more. That's their decision. That's their due diligence to take a look at. So anyway, that's...
Well, and also one challenge has been for years is, so most businesses they select locations based upon households, rooftops. And if you look at Seabrook, half of us, there's no rooftops, it's water, right? So when somebody comes in and says, I want to put a Kroger, I'm going to put an HEB, they need dense population. Well, we're right up against the water. So that's why we don't get a lot of the things that we would like, because there's just not enough density. We will never have density, right? I mean, normal cities can grow and expand their footprint. Our footprint's set, and we have very limited land. So it's always been a challenge.
There's discussion and comments about food and restaurants and that kind of stuff. If I'm counting correctly, in the three big developments that we have coming in between Margaritaville and Repsdorf and the other one, there are a total of about 9 different restaurant pads. Does that sound about right?
I was going to say 10, but, I'm
Yeah.
guessing, but I'd say 10 probably, yeah.
I may be off one as far as what Margaritaville is bringing, but we're talking about, and this is not counting fast food. Well, at least it's not counting the Taco Bell.
Right.
And anything else that goes into Miramar or any other restaurants that go up further north from there. That's 9 restaurant facilities, 9 or 10, that are currently on the books and waiting on construction to get underway, correct?
Yes, I agree with that. And again, I'm a volunteer. Anyone want to call me? I mean, we work with, our goal is to work with council. So if you guys want to work, that's what we're here for. I mean, we're not locked up in some room. I mean, we meet every Thursday, once a month in this room, citizens, council. I would love you guys to come and be involved. And the 2024, you said that the 2 incentives that we are not on the report, we just passed it, and actually it has still not been signed. So it would not be 2 projects that we probably should promote until the owners agree and sign it. So, it's not that we're hiding something. Why would we hide new projects?
Anybody else? Thanks, Paul. Good
All
report.
right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. 3.0 consent agenda. 3.1, approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 City Council meeting.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor? Thank you. 4.0, the bid awards. 4.1, consider and take all appropriate action on a bid award for requests for qualifications, RFQ, 2024-10, on-call professional services, and authorize the city manager to execute 14 professional services agreements, PSAs, to perform services on a task order basis for each of the following consultants, approved as to form by the city attorney to cover 13 disciplines of work, identified by disciplines, professional services, and technical support services for capital improvement projects related services. Number 1, Terracon Consultants, Ziegler Cooper Architects, Essaker Robinson Company, Clark Condon, Duplantis Design Group, Ameritech Solutions, Rabba Kistner Incorporated, Brown Reynolds Watford, Kimley Horn, Associated Testing Laboratories, THC Incorporated, UES Professional Solutions 44, Pinnacle Consulting Management Group, and CMT Technical Services.
Move to approve 4.1.
Second.
Any questions of Mike?
I do. Oh,
You wanna-
yeah, who are these for? What projects are these for?
So as you know, excuse me, as you know, part of state purchasing laws require cities to go out for bid for qualified firms. There's a list of special firms such as architects, engineers. There's 9. I'm drawing a blank at this point in time. Typically, when a project comes up, staff talks about it with city management. The decision's made, let's move forward. The first thing you have to do is stop and do an RFQ for one of these firms to then design the project. The goal in initiating this RFQ was to have qualified firms vetted ahead of time so that when certain projects come up within the city, we could then just initiate work to be done with them based on the set of guidelines that staff and city management want via council. Just off the top of my head, I know there's some bridge, walking bridge that we would like to have done at some point. That's something that would have to be designed by an engineer. This is just to have these qualified firms approved by council in the event that we want to move forward with the project, which would, again, the project would be brought back to council for approval. There's not anything deceptive or untransparent going on. This is very transparent. We just want to have the firms vetted ahead of time to hopefully speed up the process of getting projects knocked out.
Is this for like a year, or is there a timeline, or is this for until we talk about it again, or?
Well, my understanding, I do not recall there being a
Review process?
an end date on the contract. I would have to review that. Gail, do you?
So Mayor and Council, these would be, firms will be put under professional services agreement, and the task orders would come back to you. So much like you're familiar with Cobb Finley, when we come back to you, Cobb Finley has a specific task. So they'd be on contract and done as needed. So you'll be involved with the as needed or task orders. There is not a term date on that. Typically, our professional services, every 5 to 7 years, you want to go back out and refresh those lists. This is really our first on-call list that we've dealt with. But just to kind of give another example, we have a bond program for your fire training tower. When we got the fire training tower project started, they needed geotechnical. We didn't have a geotechnical engineer on board, so it was either we could pay for it or we could pay 10% extra and do it as a sub through the original contract. So this is in hopes of some of these CIP projects that we're working with will save us money as we've got direct contracts with them and we don't have to go through a third party.
Okay, thank you. I know I tried to get this answered beforehand, and I didn't get in touch with you in time, so I apologize, but thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
No, we haven't.
Oh. All in favor? Thank you. 5.1, new business. Consider and take all appropriate action on the approval of a co-op TIPS contract number 210-70202 to construct the renovation of the Friendship Park restrooms in the amount of $58,457.11 as part of the American Rescue Act Plan funds allocations, and authorize the city manager to execute all associated documents and amend the fiscal year 2024 CIP to reflect this project. Ryan?
Gail, can I have control of Peter? I've got more pictures. So I'm just going to run through some pictures of what the restroom looks like currently. So this is the restroom at Friendship Park. This is the men's side looking into as you go into the restroom. This is the actual where you go to the restroom on the men's side. Again, the men's side. This is looking from the back side toward Park Drive. You see the two water fountains. Those are proposed to be replaced. Backside, but looking toward the water fountains. That's the water closet door in between the men and the women's restroom. Here's the women's side entrance. As you first walk in, that's what you see. And that's the mode. So we went out for, this is a co-op company vetted by the state. We went out to get pricing on a full rehab of the restroom following this design. So removing the water fountains, replacing the water fountains, removing the hand dryers, replacing them, removing the sinks, replacing them, removing the existing manual gates and having them auto opening, auto unlocking gates, similar to what we did at Meadow Park. Lights, fixtures, everything's going to be removed and replaced as a part of this project. Bid came back at $58,457.11. I can answer any questions.
I got a question. You know, a lot of times lights like that at a bathroom, you know, in certain times of the year around here, it attracts millions of bugs. Have you thought of, was the lighting thought out where there's like LED don't attract the bugs like the other kind do, so.
It'll be LEDs, but they're going to be the exact same lights that are at Metter. They're going to be the vapor, I think they're called vapor-proof lights. They'll be LED.
Any other questions? Buddy,
Move to approve 5.1.
any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. 5.2, consider and take all appropriate action based on city council direction to city staff regarding the engineering approach to Carruthers Coastal Gardens grading and drainage project. Two individual presentations will be provided, one by the city staff and one by the Open Space and Trails Committee. Brian.
So the Carruthers Coastal Gardens project, we met with the Open Space and Trails Committee, and there were some concerns with what was on the bid tab. There are two differing opinions. Staff's opinion is staff recommends following the professional engineer's design, which includes full clearing and grubbing of the site, as well as off-site soil excavation and grading. This approach ensures that proper drainage and sustainability of the trails and planting beds are achieved. Deviating from the engineered plan will release the engineer from liability and prevent them from certifying the construction. This could impact the project's overall integrity and limit future legal recourse. While this project is not critical to public safety, health, or welfare, failing to fully grub and fill may lead to drainage and grading problems. Organic materials left behind will decay over time, potentially causing sediment and erosion, which would require repairs later. If City Council chooses to omit the clearing and grubbing or the off-site fill and grading items, staff recommends listing them as alternates in the RFP to establish unit pricing. This will allow the city to move forward with flexibility and avoid costly change orders if these items become necessary during the construction process. Recommendations to proceed based on these considerations. We would like City Council to make a motion either to finalize RFP without clearing and off-site fill, or to finalize the RFP with full engineered plans. And I'm gonna let Monica, let me pull up Monica's.
Okay, I was told to hold the mic. Okay, hi, I'm Monica Como. I'm the chair of the Open Space and Trails Committee. So the meeting that we had to discuss this was actually the day I had my surgery. I was not present that day. However, my vice chair, David Popkin, he's here and he can answer any questions that you have following my presentation. I will also say that based on the information I received after that meeting, I am in agreement with the rest of my committee. They voted unanimously on the information I'm about to present. Okay, so here's our notes. There are 13 line items on the RFP bid sheet. The Open Space and Trails Committee recommends removal or modification of 4 of these line items. It is both Norwex's and staff's position that these items should be retained. Therefore, only council can direct staff to remove or amend the subject items. So for line item number 4, it's a 4-inch clearing and grubbing. We recommend to modify this one. While the line item does not specifically state, the Norwex drawings contemplate a full grub of the entire 5+ acres that includes the area east of the original demolished structure, nearly all of the way to the bay, north swell to south swell. There is no cogent argument for this full-blown procedure other than it being an industry-accepted practice for commercial grading and drainage projects. This is not a standard grading and drainage project by any stretch of the imagination. We concede that the swales at either edge of the property, the new trails, and the new planting bed areas should be grubbed. For us, it makes perfect sense to leave the remainder of existing lawn in place for several reasons, the chief one being the cost savings. Furthermore, the existing sod will be more resilient to significant rain events. A fully grubbed 5+ acre area will be much more susceptible to erosion than a partially grubbed 5+ acres. Another component of the grubbing is final compaction to 85% proctor density. Again, this is perfectly acceptable in the areas we have conceded should be grubbed. But to rip up a perfectly good lawn, compact it to 85%, and then spray hydro mulch so that it can become lawn again is just nonsensical and a gross waste of funds. Funds that, in our opinion, would be far better served purchasing quality soil, future plants, and trees. For line item number 6, we suggest demolition, removal, and off-site disposal of existing concrete slab. We ask that this line item be removed. Our thought is to repurpose that slab at some point with another gazebo structure. In the meantime, it poses no impediment to implementation of the master plan. For line item number 8, demolition, removal, and off-site disposal of existing land bridge, we ask that this line item be removed. Our committee will voluntarily demolish the structure and take the debris to Public Works to be put into their dumpster. Line item number 10, off-site soil excavation, relocation, compaction, and grading per plan. We ask this line item be removed. Any project of this size involving grading and moving of dirt is subject to inaccuracies in the amount of soil necessary for proper execution of the work. While we acknowledge the expertise of Norwex Engineering in this arena, we also have 2 construction professionals on our committee with more than 70 years of combined experience. It is our opinion that the amount of soil in the existing pad site, along with whatever comes from the regrading of the swales, is sufficient to create the raised planting beds and to alleviate any low areas. As part of Phase 2, the planting beds will necessarily receive a significant amount of topsoil or garden mix, and their overall height can be adjusted with that application. We are confident that any additional topsoil on the planting beds would be far superior to any common fill dirt put down beforehand. And as I stated, I'm up here as chair of the committee, but I do have David with me to answer any questions that y'all may have on our behalf. Thank you.
You here to ask questions? Is that what?
We're both here to answer questions.
Oh, okay, okay. I have a couple.
Tag team tonight.
And a couple. So, I've read everything I can find on grubbing, and it can be all kinds of depths. It can be 4 inches to 12 inches in grubbing, and that does seem like that's really absurd. Can you scalp it? I mean, that's another terminology that they have used, or even selective grubbing that might just at least level the property. And does it even need to be? I was there this afternoon looking at it, and you have a definitive, down to the water slope. I mean, it'd be crazy to do a whole lot there. Is it not necessary to do some of the root-bearing portion of the top? Because I know that the organic matter that's right underneath the grassy area is extremely important and don't want to lose it. Is it necessary that we take the grass part off, or do we just scalp that part of it, or even possibly mow it so low that what we put on top of it would survive? Because I think what I'm concerned about is that once that portion of it dies, that it does it's going to move. It's going to change its topography. That's
It will
the
settle.
issue. Yes.
It's going to settle a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, the portion that we don't grub won't go any further than it is now.
Right.
Now, there will be some, obviously, there's going to be some soil moved around. The swales get cleaned out and enlarged, I think probably a little bigger than they are. So that soil is available to fill in the low spots. And we have the pad site, the unused pad site, which, once again, is just an estimate, but we think there's sufficient soils there to take care of any low areas and to do our planting beds. Now, they may not come up to the actual height that has been put on the plan, but that's where we had the caveat about the topsoil. We're really going to need topsoil at the end of the day to plant with.
What's the total that you think we'll save by not doing?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there could be an argument that just a blanket bulldozer is going to be cheaper than trying to do it with a scalpel.
You put a piece of equipment on that property, and you're going to start to.
There's going to be damage.
Absolutely.
I mean, so we'd just like to minimize it if we can. And really, to be transparent, all we're looking for is cost savings. We just feel like this project from the beginning was bureaucratic overkill. And so we know there's funds available for that park from the insurance proceeds. The first iteration of this was bid, and it was close to the amount of funds that we have. We'd like to see something left over so that we can actually do something positive out there. Not that this isn't positive. There's some things that that the city's going to gain from this project. We're going to get the trails defined. We're going to get the beds defined. And we're going to do some drainage work that can't be bad.
Is there any concern with taking, well, I guess one of the changes are that we're going to leave the concrete foundation there. Is that my understanding now at this?
Yes, that's a small foundation. I think it's about 8
Okay,
feet.
so you're just going to leave it there for the future in case you may
Yeah,
need it? So
thought we could,
the part that's further back where the arches are,
Right.
is that part going to come up?
That's all it's going to stay.
That's all staying the way it is? So really, it's more to the east of where that,
It's between the bay and
and that concrete pad, is that my understanding? It seems like there's an awful lot of property there, or a lot of opportunities there to get that smoothed out. I support the project. We desperately would love to see this go forward. We're way overdue. I hope that we can get this passed tonight.
yeah, I mean, certainly those of us on the committee, you know, are as impatient, if you don't mind us using that word, with some progress out there. It's been, literally, it's been years since it was shut down as an event venue. So we're all anxious to do something positive out there.
I kind of want to mention one thing. So all the areas in red, that's all the areas of cut. So that would have, all the red would have to have the grass come up. And that would be used as part of the fill for the areas in green. The lightest green color, you may not need to grub, but you might, it doesn't really, the lightest green color is the color with the least amount of fill added to it. When you get into the dark green, that's around 1.5 feet of fill. But if you wanted to put the gut material with the grass on top of the fill material areas, you could do that, but you will see some settling.
As soon as you put a track dozer on that property, you're going to change it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same.
And I think
That in itself, by the time you run it back 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
it's going to completely change that
Yeah,
property.
I think certainly, that's a given. We're just trying to, at the end of the day, we're just hoping this is going to save the city some money and give us an opportunity to spend it on some things that we're all looking forward to putting out there.
I've heard a lot of talk about saving money, and by the way, your comment about the frustration in getting this moving forward, I know most of us up here absolutely feel that frustration as well. And I don't want to put you two guys on the spot completely, but we're talking about saving money going with one option versus the other. A scientific guess, based on your experience and knowledge, how
It's
much
gonna
are we
settle
talking
some.
about?
If you don't grub it, you keep the organics in the material, you may have a settling of 2 inches. But
No, how much money are we talking about
Oh.
saving?
I have no idea
I
until we
think
bid
it's-
it.
I think it's,
It could be 50,000.
yeah.
And, you know, that's a valid guess. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. Although the argument for keeping the grass untouched, with the grubbing, you have to do 2/3 of the way down. By the time you cut that off and move that dirt up towards the top, yeah, it's going to be a mud pit one.
I think one thing, though, that we need to be made aware of is the dozer's going to run across and tear up some of that
Right.
that sod, but the dirt is going to stay. If you do what they're asking to do, they're going to take 4 inches of topsoil along with that sod.
It's
just.
so doing that as we saw from your presentation, the legal recourse, we're a government entity. We cross every I, dot every T, or however it is you say that, and you make sure that you're 100% correct and 100% covered on what you're trying to accomplish. What you're asking us to do is kind of skip that step on this one and do it the way OS&T wants to do it. I'm not against that, okay? But we need to fully quantify the risk and the savings, because there is some risk, and it's not going to come back to OS&T, it's going to come back to the city. If we support that decision, it comes back to us. And that risk has dollar figures attached to it, and those dollar figures have to come from somewhere. So if we're saving, let's say, 50,000, and the risk is assessed at a 30,000, then okay, let's do it. But we have to manage that risk as well. I'm for moving this project forward, okay? I just want to get this moving forward. So what do we have to do that and get it progressing somehow?
I would kind of like to keep those items as alternates for a unit cost, just in case. But the full bid, they could bid it with pretending it's not there. Like, we don't have to do the grubbing, we don't have to do the off-site fill. But we'll still have unit costs, just in case it gets near the end, they're like, that doesn't look quite right. We can have a cost to go back with if we needed to, instead of having to do a change order.
Buddy?
Well, I can well appreciate what you presented, Brian, from an engineering perspective, and I think you did a great job. And anybody that's dealt with engineers know that they're going to take it to the limit. And I can also appreciate what OS&T is saying from their perspective of what they want, and I can support that. So the real thing comes down to is an understanding. If we go with the OS&T recommendation, it's got to be a realization and understanding there are not buckets of money sitting around down here for, oh, gee, this didn't work, and we're going to have to come back and do it. We may be able to come back and do it, but not right away. It just depends on what's available with the funds. And if you'd been at the budget meeting, you'd have a better understanding of that. But I will support OS&T's recommendation, and this is no detriment to you, Brian, and the work that the engineering company did. But this is a commission, this is your recommendation, so I can support that.
Could I also say that if the site does settle 2 inches where we didn't grub, to me, that's not something that we're going to bring back to council and say, oh my goodness, we need to go over there and put another 50 truckloads of dirt in there. That's not going to happen. I would like to remind everyone here that this grading and drainage project is probably the first and only project of its kind for a park in our city. I mean, we typically take care of, I say we, I'm saying staff, typically takes care of low areas with a PVC pipe that runs under the trail and it drains, on its own. I mean, sometimes it takes longer than normal. Anyway, my point is we can live with 2 inches of settlement and still have a fantastic park.
Mike?
Yeah, I guess my concern, is the tennis courts, because I've heard about the tennis courts and the concrete that's under they just covered up.
It's asphalt.
Yeah, so we need to figure out how we're going to do that.
That's part of the project, actually.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we get that
That
taken.
has to go away.
Okay.
Definitely.
Because that's going to, I don't know if it's going to bring a bulldozer in, and I don't want to bring a bulldozer in. Hopefully, we could do it another way and get that taken care of for you too.
It's going to
Because
be
that's going to
probably
be,
some kind of excavator.
yeah,
The entire site's going to have a bulldozer on it.
see? And,
That's because of just the moving of the dirt. To get
well, let's just make sure y'all work it out, but go,
Well, yeah, and I would like to say too, with staff and council here, that it would be very good if a couple of representatives from OS&T can be present at the site visit for the contractors, so we can talk to them about those very concerns and see if we can minimize that, obviously. Hopefully we can.
and the other comment, this goes back to city, I don't know if we can go back to the contractor that was supposed to do it.
Right.
Because I think they should be liable for this, that's just my opinion. So I don't know if we have any room there, but,
You're talking about the tennis court.
correct.
We did some research on that. So in their contract, they were only bidding to remove 6 inches of concrete. So they removed the 6 inches of concrete. We didn't know there was actually asphalt down there until we tried to plant trees.
Oh, I didn't know, okay.
It's after the fact.
Okay, all right.
But we're kind of, that's one of the issues that came up.
Gotcha, thank you.
So that's what I wanted to talk about too, because when they built that, I saw them built that. They put the asphalt down first, then they put a form on the asphalt and poured the concrete. So I don't think the open spaces and trail or that insurance money should come out of their group. That should come out of city's money. It's not their issue. I've heard that the city was told there's an asphalt base, then there's concrete, and it wasn't done. The other one I have is the fence. There's still a fence down there, That's 1,100 feet long that's on city property, and it should be on the property line, not on city property, which takes about 18,000 square feet of park place away. So that's, I know that's not in this. And then the other thing is, we actually have discussed this a lot, and this was a big deal last year. We voted one time 7-0 that we were going to do all this stuff, and then we came back after the original guy came and said, no, this is wrong. We don't need to grade this whole thing. We don't need to bring in 500 trucks of dirt. And so we voted 7-0 the other way. I don't even know why we need this engineer. Personally, engineers, just like doctors, lawyers, are wrong. This guy's wrong. I'll say it. I'm not going to be afraid of this guy. Why would you want to just drag 4 inches of dirt all over the whole place? That's just crazy. The other thing is, part of this park was supposed to be, we'll plant native plants because this area is a natural flood area. So you're going to plant plants. If it's a low-lying area, and I kind of know right near where the tennis court exists now, there's actually kind of a low area. I'd love to see some, plants that do well right there naturally, and I know we have them. So that'd be a great part of the trail system, because the trail would walk right by a low-lying area. You put the plants that grow well in low-lying areas, so then you get to see those type of plants too. So you don't need to drag all this kind of stuff. So I'm obviously for this motion we have for number one with just keep them out of there, just for what they have to do, basic of getting out that asphalt, and then let these guys run the whole thing. I trust you.
Rob?
I want to make one comment, then I'd like to make a motion. There seems to be a perception amongst a lot of folks in OS&T and around the city that as soon as the insurance money is gone, there's nothing else ever going to come out of the city to support this facility. That's not true. From where I'm sitting, there is not enough money in the insurance fund, no matter how you do it, to get the park to where we all want it to be. So yes, we want to be responsible with the funds that are available, but this perception that seems to be pretty common, that once that money's gone, there's nothing left. No, that's not true. It has to go through CFP program. It has to get approved and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean that we're just going to walk away from the park. Having said that, I move that City Council direct city staff to finalize the request for a proposal for the Carruthers Coastal Gardens Grading and Drainage Project with all recommended engineered plans and specifications. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong one. The wrong one, Mark. I move that City Council direct city staff to finalize the RFP for the Carruthers Coastal Gardens Grading and Drainage Project without the inclusion of full clearing and grubbing of the site and without off-site soil excavation, relocation, compaction, and grading as outlined in the original engineered plans. The RFP will focus on grubbing only in the necessary areas such as swales, trails, and the new planting bed areas, and will exclude off-site fill.
Second.
Do you want it?
Mayor, ma'am, before we vote, was the intention to leave out any potential ad alternatives?
That's what I was going to ask. You want the ad alternates in the project?
The recommendation of staff was if you decide to move and proceed with this project without the grubbing and the clearing, that we at least add them as ad alternates, so that if down the road we notice that maybe we have to do something like that, we will, but it won't be part of the bid. Just for clarification.
Yeah.
Add alternates in the bid. If that needs to be in here, absolutely, and I'll restate the motion. However,
Someone can amend.
my understanding that would just be included in the RFP as alternate items in the RFP.
If that's part of your intention of your motion, then let the record reflect.
Okay.
Is that part of the second?
Yes.
Yes.
So, Rachel, amend the motion?
No, it says we can reflect it,
Okay.
if that was your intention.
That was absolutely the intention.
Okay. Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5.3, consider and take all appropriate action on the first and final reading of ordinance 2024-22, declaration of disaster. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Seabrook, ending the declaration of disaster, providing an effective date, and finding and determining that the meeting at which this ordinance was passed was open as required by law. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve 5.3.
All in favor? Thank you. 5.4, consider and take all appropriate action on Resolution 2024-20 for acceptance of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Subaward DR 4485-0141 for EOC Police Department generator. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Seabrook authorizing the city manager to accept the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Subaward from the Texas Division of Emergency Management and to execute all subsequent grant agreements associated with the HMGP Grant DR 4485-0141, City of Seabrook Emergency Operations Center generator, and authorizing the city manager to execute the award letter attached hereto as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to take all steps necessary to proceed with the project.
Make a motion to approve 5.4.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks, Kevin. 5.5, consider and take all appropriate action on Resolution 2024-21 for acceptance of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Subaward DR 4586-0078 for sewer system portable generators. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Seabrook authorizing the city manager to accept the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program Subaward from the Texas Division of Emergency Management and to execute all subsequent grant agreements associated with the HMGP Grant DR 45-86-0078 sewer system portable generators, authorizing the city manager to execute the award letter attached hereto as Exhibit A, authorizing the city manager to take all steps necessary to proceed with the project.
Make a motion to approve 5.5.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. 5.6, consider to take all appropriate action on the approval and renewal of an agreement between the City of Seabrook and San Jacinto Community College District for use of district facilities to stage personnel and equipment during declared disasters and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
Make a motion to approve 5.6.
Second.
Any discussion? Any questions?
Doesn't make sense.
We already have this agreement with them, right?
Mayor, yes, we do. This is just an update to the agreement.
All in favor? Thank you. 5.7, consider and take all appropriate action on approved recommendation from the Open Space Trails Committee on planting live oak trees along Main Street during the winter tree planting event.
Okay. Again, this was discussed at the meeting I was not present for, but again, David is here to answer any questions. It was recommended that in that area along Main Street that we seek to plant some live oaks in that area to provide shading to the people who congregate down there and fish, play and hang out on Main Street. I believe one of our committee members did speak to Trees of Houston, and they have already agreed to underwrite 15 15-gallon live oaks if approved. Is that okay? So that's all I have right now.
Question, so 15, it looks like they could have even more. I'd like to see even more, but you guys are the tree experts.
That was an arbitrary number, and what we'd like to do is do a survey down there, and I think Barry Ward would, the company that would, Trees of Houston would probably agree to more. And our thought would be to put the live oaks in between the palms, intersperse them equally, and the reasoning behind the live oaks, all of you probably know, one of the toughest trees and native, of course, and so we've had our issues with the palm tree planting. We've had our issues in the other parks with planting trees that aren't live oaks. We've had a much higher success rate with the live oak, so and it's really a traditional tree for our state and our area.
I have a question. Sure. I have a question. Considering the storm surge we had with Beryl and Armando, would they survive that?
They're pretty resilient to that, but they can be killed by salt water in their roots. So.
Okay. The other question would be that we have a flag project. Would this, do we need to coordinate this with the flag project?
I would expect so. If that's going to take up some space, we might consider where a tree would go.
Okay, so would you get with and coordinate, have them coordinate that? Thank you.
One thing to consider as well as we improve that area with things that we're going forward with, I want to make sure we protect them as well, if we can, because I don't want you to do all this work and then all of a sudden these construction guys or whatever, when we widen the road or put parking spots down there, we mess them up. So I want to make sure we do our due diligence there as well. So thank you.
I've got one question. You know, this past weekend, we had kids fish over there, and a lot of the trees that are along the banks have lures and strings and everything else hanging from them. Is that something that is taken into consideration as to how these trees are going to canopy over this area?
I would think not. I mean, the canopies, obviously, we're looking forward to those canopies growing so that they provide the shade. Probably more critical than, you know, I mean, one of the critical components of that area is some shade there. You know, it sounds like a good volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers so we can send them down there because I think that's going to happen.
I think whoever made that comment, that's a good volunteer right there. Oh, okay.
I didn't see too many people at Kid Fish this weekend. So, yeah, it's you know, the lines are already getting the lures and the strings over them, and that area all the way on the right is covered with them. It's not pretty. And, you know, I really don't want Main Street to end up looking like that. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve 5.7.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. 5.8, consider and take all appropriate action on a request from Yachtygraph for hotel occupancy tax funds in the amount of $10,000 for fiscal year 2024-25, including a schedule for releasing funds to the applicant if approved.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Shanna Thiem. I'm the new, Executive Director of Yachtygraph. Is it on? Where?
And you can tell I'm new to this. It's my first time ever in front of City Council, so I'm also here, I'm here on behalf of Yachtygraph. Nobody heard me. I'm the new Executive Director. I'm very proud to be here. I'm very proud to represent. I'm also here with a lot of my new board members, Tiffany and Michael Floyd over there, Elisa Kranick over here. We've done a lot of revamping to Yachtygraph. I also have our newest partner, David Chin with Quality Inn in Seabrook. So we're here to ask for the $10,000 for the hot funds. And also, if I knew we could add a presentation, I'd have had a pretty purple, green, and gold presentation up there. But we're here and we want to make Seabrook one of our main goals for the hotels. That's why, one, we partnered with David. Right now, I'm trying to partner with Spring Hill Marriott, and of course, every other one as well. Right now, we're scheduled to have 4 events in Seabrook, working on a 5th one. They're all here in Seabrook. Of course, we do have some in Kemah because it also goes down the boardwalk. I'm also currently working with the Texas Bucket List with Sean McCain. I want him down here in Seabrook to kick off the Yachtygraph Festival. So I'm working with that. We have 15 other different ads and publications that we're working with. We're recently adding the Texas Festival and Events, Destinations International, Texas Travel Alliance, Texas Association of Fairs and Events. So we're trying to get everybody in across the state of Texas. Not only to mention, we have people in Italy, Japan, everywhere that follow us on Facebook. Last year, we had over 60 boats that participated in our parade. We had over 20,000 people that attended the event throughout Seabrook, the Clear Lake area, and Kemah. And that number was given to us by the Coast Guard. So they give us numbers every year of what all we're doing and what their anticipation is. In 2023, when we received funds, the HOP funds from the city of Seabrook, we had an 82% heads and beds. And my goal this year is to well exceed that. All of our board members, our committee members, we're all dedicated to that, and that is one of our number one goals. Other than that, if y'all have questions for me, I'm here. Being new, I'm learning a lot. I've dealt with Mardi Gras, though, in Galveston for 18 years. I've dealt with Mardi Gras now here in Seabrook, in Kemah, for the last 3 years. And I'm proud to be here, and I'm honored to be in front of y'all right now. Does anybody have any questions for me about Mardi Gras this year?
I just have a comment. I think it's a great event. I do support this. I especially like that it's a nighttime event. I do think it brings heads in bed.
It absolutely it does, because we don't finish up till 10, 11 o'clock. They
Right.
don't want to drive home. So you'll see on our website, besides all of our sponsors, are all the hotels, and they're Seabrook hotels. David, he is going to be one of our number ones. So is Spring Hill. They all are.
That's wonderful that you have the support of the local hotels. That's great.
We do, and we're proud of that.
That's great. I support this. Thank you.
There's a couple people in Seabrook from Brazil. They live here permanently, and they have talked to the people back home. So Carnival now knows about Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras, yeah.
So-
We have followers from Brazil.
Exactly. So that's actually starting to get to be they think this is really cool that you guys were doing it on a boat. So, like I said, it got the attention of people in Brazil that run Carnival. So I think that's pretty neat too.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mike?
So we spoke earlier, and I appreciate it. I've already spoken to Spring Hill and David, and we've had long conversations because I'm a big advocate as well of these events and different things, but I want the support of the hotels. This is the hotel's money, they're paying into this fund.
Correct.
And for our marketing and everything to go properly, you have to justify the room nights for us. And I appreciate you going to the hotels and talking to them and letting them know what you're doing and getting them to come and support, because that means a lot to me, because this money is for them. And if they support you, I support you.
Thank you.
And
We will
I have
support
never not liked the event, because I go too as well, and I enjoy it. But again, I have to justify where that money is going and what it's being used for. Not for a single room, one room that you bring into this community that you put it there. It needs to be quite a bit, and they need to see an increase in the occupancies, like you said. So I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for.
And we will support, and we will have everybody directed here to Seabrook for all of our events.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, can I have to say one more thing? They should all provide an after-action report.
Yes.
Right? I just have a question, Mike. Did you happen to reach out to any hotels and ask them not to support this Mardi Gras hot funds?
Not to support, no. I wanted their either for or against to come and speak. And so I spoke to them and said, you are for this? Great. I would love to hear from you, and you come and speak to this.
Okay.
I did not say against it. I said, are you for it or against? I need you to come and speak to council because of this. This is your money. Come and speak for it.
Okay, thank you.
We support Mike.
Yes, I know. Yes, and I appreciate you supporting this event. That's pretty incredible that we have hotels that are sponsoring that. So that's great. Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you, David.
Anybody else?
Did you say something about 80%?
In 2023, what we do after the parade, but this year it's going to be more than just the Yachty Gras Parade. We have events at Lakewood Yacht Club, so we're going to promote every event we have here in Seabrook. We even deal with Keels and Wheels, so we're going to be partnering with them as well to support that. But yes, in 2023, after the parade, we have committee members call every hotel and we ask what percentage were you occupied? And it was an average of about 82%. And so my goal is to well exceed that this year. And I will show that in my post-event report.
Okay, I understand. Okay, we need a motion.
Move to approve 5.8, $10,000 for Yachty Gras.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Mayor, excuse me, is there a way we can move up executive session? We have special counsel that's in attendance.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Eight point one, executive session, section 551.071. Conduct a closed executive session to consult with the city attorney and special counsel for legal matters relating to 2022-18911 DHI Fund LP versus City of Seabrook in the 12th Judicial District, Harris County, Texas, George Vi III PC. Also, we'll have a closed executive session to discuss the recall with the attorney. Thank you. It is 8 o'clock.
Up there with your name.
Where'd we leave off? 6.0, yeah. 6.0, yeah. Okay, we've returned from executive session. It's 8:41, no action was taken. 6.1, discussion regarding the establishment of more definitive guidelines for awarding hot funds. Buddy?
Okay, I put this on there because it seems like every year we come up and it's kind of a catch as catch can, and the presentation is made, we really have no definitive yes or no. And this is not so much to deny as it is to give the applicant some sort of guidelines and saying, if I meet this criteria, then I'm eligible for it. And that's what I'd like to offer. Like if you take Lucky Trails, 100% of the activities are within the city limits of Seabrook. If you take Outlaw Challenge, the 4 hours of their event last year or this year in 2024 was in the city. And I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, I'm just saying that may be a criteria. How much is within the city? Does the city benefit? The heads and beds is so nebulous, you can't really figure out who's doing what or whose head is in what bed and why. But my concern is, like I could bring my sister over here from Austin, have her stay at the Quality Courts for 2 nights, and I'd want $2,000 for some poem reading in Meadow Park, and I could show you the receipt of the heads and beds. And what I'm saying is, as we have the businesses in town, they're going to be looking and saying, this is an avenue for us, this is revenue for us. Let's give them a definitive criteria as to why they should be granted or denied. And again, I don't have a specific answer. I'm putting it out to all of council to come up with it.
Gail, a few years ago, didn't we have the state representative that gave us the talk on hot tax and how and why and what needed to be?
We do. All of the basic information or the Texas two-step is sent out to y'all every year. And that's the basics of the put a head in bed and then one of the categories. I think, Counselor, if I could take the liberty of what your discussion item might be, we've had staff look at other cities. So we've collected a number of different guidebooks. I guess one direction that we would be looking at is it simply an expansion of the categories that we want to look at, or would council want us to look at and propose caps or limits on the different categories? There is a million different ways that all the cities are administering it very strictly, where a lot of events do not get a dime until after the event, and then they show the heads and beds, to a very loose guidebook of what we're doing, which is 75% up front with the promise of putting heads and beds and meeting those categories, meeting the budget requirements. Amanda is working with her staff frontline on all of this. So she's got extensive research, but I think we can do it. We may need just a little bit more guidance on council, what you would maybe want to see if you want something like this put together as far as limits in monetary form or just tightening up on the different categories.
I think it's going to be a multi-step process. Let's see what you can come up with. I mean, one of the things I would like to see is a greater patronage for our local businesses. So if an event is held here, you can say, hey, it brought in, X more people at the restaurant or whatever. But our major draws here, look at Miles Nursery, Merlion's, the fish markets, Bars 295, et cetera. If an event's being brought in, are these being marketed? Are they enjoying any increased business flow? Those are just some of the things I want. But again, I think it'd be a multi-step. Let's see what you come up with, get everybody's input, and go from there.
I know that a number of cities, they host more art events than we do. I mean, we do have the ballet, but, we don't have the art shows. We don't have the concerts to speak of. I mean, a concert is, I think, considered an art in the way that the state wrote the hot fund taxes, isn't it? I think it is. And so, and I know people have been complaining about, our Celebration Seabrook, but that actually is, we do have those funds. And so, I think that those things are important besides putting heads in beds. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I have a question about why is that not on the sponsorship for Celebration Seabrook? That's not a part of the hot funds, like in the presentation tonight for the EDC. Why is that left out?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Why is that not listed out as hot funds sponsorship on the EDC report tonight?
2 different funds. So you have hotel
EDC.
occupancy, and that's one fund.
That's not EDC.
Yeah.
We're not doing hot funds for Celebration Seabrook?
Yeah, we are, but that's not out of EDC.
Right.
Okay.
That's a
Well, there was a hot fund.
Hot fund is hotel occupancy.
Right, I know what it is, but I thought that was on a slide tonight.
No.
No?
Well, EDC is also a sponsor. Maybe that's what they're a sponsor of the festival.
Maybe I saw it. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyways, it's what we have a list of who we gave hot funds money to recently. Celebration Seabrook's not on that list for hot funds.
Oh, you're talking about, so there's a presentation on the agenda, the attachments on the agenda that list all the different events.
Okay.
Okay.
Why is it not on there? I mean, do they have different guidelines for that event? I mean, wouldn't they be the same?
No. We have vocal music, we have the arts. So the festival, we've checked, I think we've exchanged emails. So we've checked with our partners at the TML, with the Texas Lodging Association to make sure that these type of festivals are eligible. So it does, the $45,000 does come out of HOT as well as all of those other funds. So you're, I think at 138 right now in the budget, 138,000, including that are coming out of your HOT funds for events.
I guess my question is, why do we approve for certain businesses, but we don't have to approve for Celebration Seabrook?
You do.
We did approve.
You do.
We separately discussed
She did a
that
presentation.
Yeah,
She
we
did a
did
full presentation.
Yeah, during
at the
budget
same
process.
time,
We did the budget process.
but with the hot funds applicants.
Yes.
We did not interview, or we did not approve Celebration Seabrook hot funds with all the other hot funds this year.
Oh, okay, I understand. You're making the distinction that we didn't have Amanda come up and submit the paperwork to
I mean,
herself.
or we just discuss it all together. Yeah, kind of.
You did a separate presentation, I believe. Didn't we have an item?
I know she did a presentation, but you're just saying that she didn't do it in the same format as everybody else.
No.
So for Celebration Seabrook, we do an after event presentation, and then we also typically will present to council coming up to the event, typically after the budget is approved, and then we kind of just do an overview of where we are with the event, how many sponsorships, vendors, food trucks, things like that we have coming in. But it's a city hosted event, so it doesn't get presented in the same way that an outside entity would come in and fill out the application process. We follow all the same guidelines. And as far as that goes, but it is presented differently. So whenever you look at the previous presentation, there's a line item it's a different color so that it will stand out a little bit specific to Celebration Seabrook and that funding to see how it comes out of the hot funds and how that amount compares to the rest of the budget.
And you will have an after post-event, like showing how many heads and beds again?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay,
As part of the discussion about hot funds and how to do that, budgets are budgets, and they have to follow a timeline. We need to set a clear and definitive suspense, a not later than date. We need to clarify how the information is distributed, whether it's put out on Facebook or whatever it happens to be, because that seems to be the only thing any of our residents look at. And I agree with Buddy that having some kind of a format to say, if you're bringing in less than 50,000 people and for a one-day event, then it's capped at, or something along those lines. And I'm not trying to make it more complicated, but every year we get twisted around the axle over hot funds, and every year it just gets more and more complex. If we set some clear guidelines and rules and actually follow them, which would be nice, then we're not fighting this same stuff every single year.
I like that idea. I think that if we could get some comparisons of whoever has guidelines on how many people you plan on bringing, I think that's something we should vote on.
Well, we also talked about once a business or once an organization has been here for so long, they should start to work on their own, because we want to bring new events here. The hoteliers are saying we want something different. If they're not getting anything from whatever event is here, they need their voice to speak, because this is money that's coming from them that they're generating and we're spending. Remember that. I mean, it's stuff that is helping the small businesses in the aspect of the hotels. That's what this money is for. It's for putting heads in beds. It's not to entertain our, residents, but sometimes it is, because those, like you said, the event that we have, Celebration Seabrook, the bands come in, people follow those bands, they stay in hotel rooms, Barge 295, the band that comes in, hopefully they got heads in beds and they're documenting it. So we've got to get the hotel's input on where we want to spend this. When I was in Palm Beach, Florida, that's exactly what we did. And you were right, Tom. Almost every weekend, they had an art show. And yes, this money came from the city, but it was on the boardwalk, and it was a huge success. I mean, people would drive hours away and stay in the hotels and come for this, because it was all types of art. Of course, it's a different location. It was on the water, Palm Beach, but they had all these vendors that came out and did this, and it was a hit. I'm telling you, my hotel's around the corner, and phenomenal on the weekends. Yes, it's in Palm Beach, but eventually that will happen as we get to Margaritaville with the boardwalk and different things. I can see a lot of things happening going down the road. So we've got to watch and try for different things, is what I'm saying. Because yes, it's the same people that keep coming. I understand that. Yes, if it's a busy weekend, but what else is there out there? What about filling in December months? What about filling in the summer months, during the week? We need things to focus on. I mean, other than just those type of things, so.
I totally agree with you, Mike. That's a great idea. But we got to figure out some kind of way to improve our relationship with the hotels.
And we're getting
And that, not really. We've got one that showed up tonight, which we were proud of the fact that he showed up. That's great, and he'll get all those kudos. But we don't seem to have a relationship that gets them involved in what we're doing as a city. And so somehow we've got to figure that out.
Yeah, and I think that's just, again, communication and trying to get with the owners, because some of the owners are not even here. They own other hotels, so it's, we got to get their managers involved and be here, like I've been doing. Designated person.
So, with that said, the Kids in Paper and Concert for Kids, they just had the event. They had 500+ people over there. The event went really well. They asked for hot tax funds and were denied or told no. And the bands stayed there, the Slags and the Bag of Donuts stayed in the hotels.
I didn't see a hot tax request for kids.
They asked about it. So, well, they went to someone in the city and the city told them no. So.
First goes to city staff, then it'll go, from what I'm understanding, right?
So this particular hot budget is for the upcoming fiscal year. Their event happened this past weekend. And so all of these events that we are reviewing for approval right now are for October 1st through September 30th of 2025. That's the reason that we couldn't accept their application for that event.
Okay. I think I understand it when you say it like that. I don't think they understood that. They were just told no, but I don't think they understood that you have to do it in a timely or certain time period. I guess that's what they're saying. So, now I can explain to them that, yeah, if you do it in a timely manner, you could have it for 2025, because they want to make this an annual event. It worked quite well, so.
Okay, anything else? 7.0, routine business. 7.1, city manager update and report to city council on various items that require no action, including post-hurricane barrel recovery efforts, Seabrook Boards and Commissions, Transportation Projects, State Highway 146 recap, and the City of Seabrook CIP projects.
Mayor and council, I'm going to ask Kevin Paget to come up. We are completely starting to close out all on debris, so we wanted to give you a little firsthand knowledge. He and Brian have been, again, working firsthand with those contractors as we're closing out.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to kind of describe how some of the operations went with debris hauling and this most recent event of Hurricane Beryl. Everybody's aware Hurricane Beryl was primarily a high wind event. We've had various types of events within our city, but this was a high wind event by most accounts and made landfall on July 8th. Within 2 days, staff had on-site window assessments with our procured debris haulers and monitors. We were out doing window assessments. Being that it was a wind event, heavy loss of vegetation and fence materials were both city and area wide. Within 7 days of landfall, debris trucks were staged at Public Works and debris hauling began just 2 days after that. So a total of 9 days after landfall of the event, we were up and running with vegetation and C&D collections. For every site pickup location, pre-appointed monitors must be on site for confirmation of eligibility in order to meet the guidelines for reimbursement. So understand the process of these large trucks making their ways through the streets. We've got pre-appointed monitors there with them, assessing the vegetation or C&D materials to confirm that they were part of this wind event. So you can imagine like paint cans, things like that, were not going to be eligible for this type of event, being that it was wind driven. So we're looking for roofing materials, we're looking for fencing materials, and we're looking for vegetation. First order of business was vegetative debris. Those were collected with the heaviest areas of loss targeted first. We've got a lot of areas like Loganberry, Shady Lake, Baywood had some heavy loss of vegetation, blocking streets and drainage ways, and those were targeted first and took a considerable amount of time to remove. Debris compiled then at a central location, 1100 Red Bluff, at Public Works. So in order to reduce the volumes for hauling, an industrial chipper was utilized to grind that vegetation prior to hauling. You can imagine the void space in a large truck like that with just loose limbs in it. So we made sure to use the grinding method to bring it to a better hauling to a recycling landfill. So once it's broken down into a material like that, we utilized a recycling landfill rather than a type 4 typical landfill to take up unnecessary space there. Once several passes were made citywide, the vegetation collection ended, and the next phase of construction and demolition we call C&D materials were collected, and those were direct hauled to a landfill. There's no need to bring those back to Public Works and restage them and then move them again. So those were going to be direct hauled once the trucks were filled. So tipping times or delivery times at these landfills at this point were hours and hours long. So you'll have long stages of lines of trucks. So if you made your way out to Public Works, you may have seen a dozen or more trailers, these large, enormous trailers staged at Public Works in our second parking lot. And we were only utilizing 3 trucks. So there was some question, well, why do you have so many trailers and not enough trucks? Well, those trucks would be the ones that would go out collecting that debris. They'd bring it back to Public Works in a full trailer, pick up another trailer and continue. So they didn't have to slow down at the landfills. At night, when everyone's gone home for the day, and these guys would go back and get those trailers and go sit in line at the landfill. So it was a very long, continuous process. All in all, Seabrook collected a total of 29,000 cubic yards of vegetation debris, C&D, and mulch. The disposal sites included a greenbelt and Evergrow recycling landfills with over 500 trucks over a 7-week period. So most of you know Seabrook Public Works oversees the debris handling operations, emergency operations, keeps up with those contracts with us, and we are sure to procure those ahead of time so that in the event of a storm, we reach out to those predetermined haulers and monitors, bring them in for assessments, and then leadership is tasked with deciding whether or not we enact our contract and bring them in. If there's enough vegetative debris to get that contract moving, that's what the window assessments are for in the beginning. In this particular one, it was estimated that we would have enough vegetative materials to get going. The decision was made to get them going, and like I said, we were rolling, picking up debris within 9 days. You can make the decision to move forward in a few days, and I think that's a mistake when people haven't had the opportunity to, one, come back home. Some people are not home. There's no power. That people haven't had a chance to make those assessments of their own properties, have estimates from insurance companies and so forth. So I think the window we were at around 9 days was, we were one of the first in our area with and we use a very large debris hauler to enact our contract. So I will say within 9 days, I think we hit a prime spot of getting started. We ran for, like I said, 7 weeks of vegetation and C&D. By that point, you're at 2 months because we delayed a week. So you're at 2 months since landfall. At that point, everyone has the opportunity to get their materials out at the curb. Several passes are made. I think overall it was a very successful operation. We've been involved with lots over the years with flood materials, flood storms, wind materials, freezes. This was, like I said, primarily strictly a wind event, and overall, in the end, I think it was a very successful operation. Keep in mind, we hosted El Lago's run-over site. They started off at their central park there and quickly filled it, and were in a spot where they needed some additional area, and luckily we were utilizing some of the same contractors, so we were able to stage a second area separate and accomplish the monitoring for that. So I'll say that I believe this is one of the most productive collection operations that we've had, that I've seen in recent times at least. But wanted to be able to be available for any questions that you may have heard from the public, or any questions of why certain things happened the way they did. Other than that, I think it was a success, and the group's gone, and material and areas cleaned up. So all of our ticketing was certified by monitors. We didn't have anything abnormal or anything that shouldn't go right through FEMA reimbursements. So.
Kevin, was the vegetation chipping, is that mulch worth salvaging or giving away or whatever?
It's an industrial grinder. So a couple of, some of that question did come up if that material could be available to the public. So it's an industrial grinder, so it makes some large chunks. So it's not ideal for yard use. Okay. It also needs time to decompose. So we would have to store it for, months to be able to break down to be really a usable material. We did keep some for ourselves that we'll use throughout the parks, but like it's going to have to sit up and decompose.
Okay.
But we do plan to use it in the parks.
Okay. Anybody else? Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Mayor and Council, I just, obviously it's been a big project, but not as large as some of ours in the past. We have mentioned in 2 previous updates, this is approximately $600,000. And so we will have a 25% local match. So we're looking at probably in the range of about $150,000. So again, we're talking budgets, talking that 25% reserve in the general fund. We go well beyond the 25%. And I think with Ike, and that's been many, many years ago, I think we were at $3 or $4 million of debris. So this one, we didn't have floods. We didn't have it wiping out all of like Miramar, where you have another yard where you have refrigerators or what we call white goods, which is even more enormous. So just wanted to kind of give a little bit more emphasis. It's been a big job. Emergency Management and Public Works did a fantastic job, but the financial part of it is coming. We're working on the other half of the barrel recovery effort still with emergency management and HR wrapping up we did have damage. We had generators go down that we're having to get some repairs done. So there's substantial claims still being worked with Beryl, and we'll probably be working this for hopefully less than Ike, 10 years, will maybe be 2 years. So anyway, our efforts continue on there. Seabrook boards and commissions, you've heard from the ones I was going to really point out today. So EDC's been busy, as well as your Open Space and Trails Committee. We'll continue on the Open Space and Trails Committee with that process of them making some recommendations and passing that over to council. Transportation projects, we mentioned the ongoing landscaping project. Weber is still got painting, as we mentioned before, on the sidewalls to do, and then a lot of little minor cleanups. The landscaping crew, we met, Brian and I met in the field with them Friday. And so right now, the areas that you're seeing that are mulched out, so we've got the NASA Road intersection, riprap going under Repsdorf, and then there's also planting areas that are over by the 10th Street exit as well. And so they're probably not going to get to planting until springtime. TxDOT doesn't want what they're going to plant to die. So once they get the plantings done, then TxDOT will take over for the next 12 months. So next fiscal year, we'll probably be before council and EDC talking about the cost of maintenance and which board wants to take that over. But will be our baby. I think there's really some good improvements that we'll see on that. The painting should begin, I think, here in the next couple of weeks. Red Bluff intersection, a lot of activity down there. I've not had a whole lot of interaction with that crew still yet, but again, they're pouring, as you can see, the piers for the third lane. They're cutting that sidewall, so we'll continue to work with them. We'll continue to press on the intersection. We shared the last meeting with the massive improvement they're going to make at that intersection. Talking last to TxDOT representative, they're on a schedule. It would take significant meetings to expedite that intersection at that point. So we're still looking at probably 7 months before they even get started on that one. The retention pond, that's closest on the south side, that is part of the landscaping project. So we should start to see that detention pond get cleaned up. The other one that's kind of massively overgrown, that's going to be with the second project. So there's still going to be some time in that intersection before things start cleaning up significantly. On our CIP projects of note, we met today with our EMS EOC expansion project on the fire department. They're at 60% drawings. And so we are looking at probably in November, hopefully we'll get everything together and bid that project in November. We're also working, now we've got these professional services. We'll work with the fire training ground and get the geotechnical going and work on some site plans to get the fire training up and going. Not to throw Kevin back up, but I think they had a wastewater treatment plant update. We are getting seriously close to one last, don't know if y'all had anything else from the 1 o'clock meeting that you want to mention?
Currently, the force main project contractors back in town needed some of the other operations to be complete before they could mobilize again, but they're here. They're here this week, and they're going to get quite a bit done. We're currently operating at about 50-50, 50% of the flow going to Main Street, 50% going to the new plant. We're going to redirect some more flows this week, and then within a month, within 4 weeks, I do believe we'll be able to start the bypassing the old plant on Main Street. Once that happens, all operations at the old plant will cease. And so then all the work that needs to be done there at that plant can start for the permanent redirection of flows. So we'll remove some of the sediment and water from the plant, but for the most part, it'll be completely out of operation. We'll be able to shut it down and just have a bypass system bringing so it'll be 100% of the flows to the new plant. So things are moving there. And then we did have a meeting today about demolition, and that's finalizing and design and concepts of how that property will not all the way looking at how it'll look, but for the most part, what to do with structures and things like that, and the timing of those removals.
Great. Any questions? Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
So just in closing, what we talked about with the demolition, so again, these professional services, we will get a park designer on board. It will be a challenge with the wastewater plant coming down. We've got a lift station that's going to stay there, so how do we incorporate that in? If it's a stage area, if it's how the park actually designed, we'll get that kicked off and a proposal back to you. And then we will hopefully get started on that fairly quickly. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Gail. 7.2, monthly financial report for August.
Good evening again, Council and Mayor. Before you tonight is our monthly financial report. As you can see, the general fund here, our revenues are still not where we'd like for them to be. However, our expenses we've done a good job maintaining our expenses, keeping them lower than the budgeted amounts. We're currently showing a change in fund balance of $290,000 in the general fund. Our enterprise fund, if we skip, before I move on, does anybody have any questions on the general fund?
No.
No. Our enterprise fund, we are, again, our revenues there are down as well. Our anticipated water usage has continued to be under what we budgeted, needing to purchase from Pasadena. So we have a large surplus in both our expense category, but when we have a large surplus in our expense on the water and sewer side, it generates a negative influx on our revenues. So the numbers don't look all that good revenue-wise, but overall, we are showing a increase to fund balance, currently projected at $186,000. Any questions on enterprise funds? On to hotel motel funds. There again, our revenues are actually outperforming our budgeted amount by $15,000. The expenses, again, we had a delay in bringing on our tourism personnel, so there's a heavy surplus there, and some of the surplus service items, our expenses are well under budget. So we've got quite a bit of revenue going back into fund balance there of $213,000. So that's very healthy. Any questions on hotel tax? Or anybody have an event they want to spend 213 on?
No.
Not yet. Okay. EDC, our sales tax, much like the general fund, it's when it's down in the general fund, sadly, it's down across the board, both in economic development as well as crime district. So there you can see our sales tax numbers are not where we'd like for them to be, not where we budgeted, but overall the fund is healthy. We are currently showing a nearly $700,000 revenue going back into our fund balance, so that's a very healthy fund. Any specific questions on EDC? No. And last but not least is our crime district. And as I stated, the sales tax again is underperforming, but the expense categories, we are controlling our cost. There we're showing a deficit of $70,000, reducing our fund balance by $70,000 current projections. So any questions?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
7.3, establish future meeting dates and agenda items.
Mayor and council, your next meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 24th. That's a special meeting. And your next regular meeting is scheduled for October the 1st at 6 p.m.
Can I ask one thing before we close the meeting? Gail, can you have, okay, so that property, just the side, the feeder roads, mostly on the west side of 146, we're behind kind of Lake Cove, like, can they get that mowed? You know, it's super tall, and even in the new area where they've planted grass or planted right by the sidewalks, there's like these big shoots of like 4 feet weeds, you know, and it just looks.
So if it's towards the sidewalks more or?
On the sidewalks, there's big giant weeds, just kind of
So that's
random.
a really good example. TxDOT mows twice a year. And then if you want anything more, you pay for it. So as we were going to be talking about maintenance, how much we do maintenance will be up to y'all.
Okay.
Yeah. So they won't do it any more than 2 times a year unless you want to pay for it.
And TxDOT also is in charge of the area behind Lake Cove?
There's certain, there's a center point corridor, pipeline corridor, that it's, you know, if they get above 18 inches, 18
I mean,
inches.
it's there for sure.
And do we notice center point on that corridor, Nick? Do we, on center point corridor?
We can.
Okay.
We can reach out to them.
Okay.
Would Jeff, Jeff gotten several complaints that they're just, you know, I understand it's still kind of in, you know, transition, but also the other lot that's across from McDonald's on the east side of 146, the corner, that's got just piles of debris and stuff kind of just collecting. And anyways, it just looks pretty bad.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do I hear a motion?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? We are adjourned at 9:20.
What is the name?
Huh?
Nemo?